Good day, everyone. Welcome to this episode of the Big Picture Manatee, where we dive deep into the latest in Manatee County. I'm Sherry Corrier, former county administrator with Manatee County, and today we're going to talk about a couple subjects that are important to citizens, especially at this time. That's qualifying for as a candidate for office, and also what does a closed primary mean? As election season continues to heat up, everybody keeps asking those questions, and we want to help educate here. So here to unpack this information and share their insights are my esteemed colleagues, former County Commissioner Misty Serbia and former County Commissioner Reggie Bellamy, who are very knowledgeable in these topics. So welcome.
Hey, how is everybody doing today? My name is Misty Serbia. I'm a former county commissioner, as you said, and also urban planner in this area for 30 years. And I'm excited about talking about this. The timing is great. So I think we're going to focus on county commission candidates since it's a little bit different. The rules are a little bit different for other races. So in talking about different methods for qualifying for county commission, you have to do a couple of things. First, you have to declare your candidacy, right? And a lot of times you'll want to issue a press release and send that out to the newspapers, the radio, television. A lot of people will pick that up. It is interesting news, and most will publish it. Um, and the very first thing I recommend you do is open a campaign account, because you have to have a campaign account to become a candidate and begin collecting money. So that is a very important step. You can do that at most banks, and a lot of them are free. So I would start there. And then you have to focus on qualifying. And there are different ways to qualify as a county commission candidate. You can either pay a dollar amount, and in this case, it would be 6% of 1 year's salary for the office sought if you're a partisan candidate. And that means if you're a Republican or a Democrat. If you are running as an NPA, the rules are a little bit different. And then I think it's 4%. Is that right? Do you guys remember? Is that 4%? Do you guys remember
Yeah.
reading that? Yeah.
Yep.
Yes.
A little bit less if you're a nonpartisan candidate. Or if you don't want to put up all that money, you can collect what are called petitions. And petitions, many of you have probably seen them. They're usually on a half sheet of paper, and you write down your name and your birth date and your address, and you sign it, and the date that you sign it. And you say in that petition that I am, as a registered voter, I am advocating for this candidate to be able to run. That's all that you're saying on the petition. You're not supporting them for the position. You're not saying you're of the same party. You're not doing anything other than helping them with the democratic process to get on the ballot and run. I know a lot of people have some stress about filling those out if they're of a different party, or if they feel that, by putting their birth date down, they may end up on a mailing list. But really, you should not worry about any of those fears, because this is just a way for the supervisor of elections to know that a registered voter in Manatee County wants to have you on the ballot to be able to run for office. And it's a very strict process. Those petitions are turned in and evaluated, and they have to be perfect. So if the address is wrong for that registered voter, it's tossed. If it's not dated, tossed. If the birth date is wrong or missing, or if any information is missing, it's tossed. And most importantly, they're looking at the signature to make sure that the signature on the petition matches the signature that they have on record at the supervisor of elections, to make sure you're a real person who is a real registered voter. So it's a very important process, and it's a very simple and very safe process. You're not going to be part of a mailing list. So I always encourage everyone to fill those out for everybody, to help our democratic process work. The candidate then pays 10 cents for each petition to be evaluated until they reach the number that's required. And the number that's required is a percentage of the registered voters. So it changes all the time. If you're in a district, you have a smaller percentage of voters that you need to qualify for. If you're running at large, you have a larger percentage of petitions to gather. I've actually run a race in both of those instances, and in both of those instances, I've collected petitions to get on the ballot. I think it's a great way to get to know the people in the community and get out there and talk to them. I would always encourage everyone to go that way. In addition to doing that, you have to declare a treasurer for your campaign. I made it myself in a couple of cases, and in another case, I had a treasurer who was appointed. It's up to you, but somebody has to be responsible for accounting for the money. And then finally, you take a candidate oath. It's an oath that you sign and is on file that says basically you're going to uphold the Constitution and run this race in accordance with the law. I forgot one thing. There's a Form 6. The Form 6 is required also. You may have heard about that in the news, and it requires that you disclose your net financial worth. Now, there are a lot of things that you don't have to put on there. And I remember one of the things was money that you have saved in a retirement account for on the government side. I know I was exempt from showing some of that, but your net worth could be your house minus the debt, your cars minus the debt, everything that you have. And at the bottom of the page, it says what your net worth is. And lots of people are interested in that. So that's something else that will be on file. And then 120 days before the primary, that is when qualifying happens. So that is when everybody will know who the candidates are for the races. That generally happens around the end of May, beginning of June. And so that is coming up fast in this election. Reggie, what have you got?
Well, I just want to go back to the petition signature fear before we get too far, because I've experienced that where individuals don't want to disclose their birthday. I've experienced, petitions being brought forward and not signed. But I've also experienced, people have to realize that when you sign a petition, you're not voting for someone.
Right.
You can have your party commitment and still sign a petition for another party. It's unfortunate where we are now, where because if you are an R, you don't want to sign a petition for a D, or if you are a D, you don't want to sign a petition for the R. Remember, we're trying to be a part of the democratic process, where we want to make sure that everybody has a voice, and the voice is allowed based on the petitions being brought forward and signed correctly. I often think that going through the petition process has created a lot of anxiety for people, because again, they don't want to be on the mailing list. Again, they don't want people to think that they're voting for someone who they really don't know who it is, because the petition process is so early in the actual candidacy or the election process. So I think that's important.
So both of you got petitions in your elections, but when I think about when you said, Misty, it's a 6% of what the commissioners, in this case, we're talking about commissioners, make. So, people might not know. That's about, right now, it's a little over $98,000 a year, and it's going to go up again in July.
Is it 98? I thought it was like 100 and something.
It's going up again. I mean, it's about to go up, and it will be over 100,000, like right around 104,000. And that could have happened already. But when I think about 6% of that, and I look at candidates and they have $75,000 or $100,000 in their account already as donations, sometimes they just end up going, I'll just pay? Or what happens there when you get like when a person gets close to the deadline?
I think a lot of times that happens. I've seen that happen a lot of times. There are people who don't even try to collect petitions. Um, and those are people that feel that the money is the most important aspect,
Yeah.
and they can just send the postcards and win. And guess what? Yeah, it works. But if you are running a ground game and trying to really get to know people in the community and tell them why you're running and have them support you, I think there's no better way to do that than to collect
Yeah.
petitions.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree. The ground game and petitions run parallel, because knocking on the doors allow you to meet people and hopefully get their support. They learn a little bit more about you because you're actually speaking to them, asking them about the petition. It allows them to ask you questions about you and why you're running. But I do think the petition game is one of the most challenging parts as far as taking that initial step.
Yeah, but I mean, like you guys said, I bet you end up meeting people you'd never meet before anyway, so it's a good thing. So I know we've talked before about campaign contributions, how people can look at those. I know we're going to come back in future episodes, potentially bring back Kathy Antunes, who's someone we had on here before, to look at the status of these races, because now there are plenty of candidates on both sides in these races. And we'll be doing that in the future. But we also want to kind of talk about something that happened in this past week to all the different races, and that's a closed primary. And I'm just gonna, Reggie, I'm gonna ask you, can you help us describe what a closed primary is?
Well, the reality of the closed primary is it intentional or non-intentional.
Yeah.
However, however, what happens is when initially, and this is just my interpretation, you have a Republican, which is an R, or a D, a Democrat, running against each other. How they close it, they bring another party individual in, whether it's another R, another D, and therefore the primary now is closed because only D's can vote for D's and only R's can vote for R. I have learned that this is a political strategy, and when it becomes a political strategy, that, in my opinion, I'm interpreting that as though that is intentional. The non-intentional is when you have, 3 or 4 R's and 3 or 4 D's running for one position, and now all of a sudden that closes it unintentional. However, some of the strategic or some of the political powers to be, in my opinion, intentionally, close the primary by making sure they add another D or another R to the race. So only Democrats can vote for Democrats and Republicans can vote for Republicans. So their party individual can take and come out on top. Now, when the general comes, you have one Republican voting, one Republican representative and one Democratic representative. That's the way I'm understanding. Misty, do you have anything on that?
Yeah, well, and when it happens organically, then you might have real candidates on both parties, which is ideal, and that's how the process should work, right? But in a closed primary state, the disadvantage is that there is a strategy, as you said, in a Republican area, such as Manatee County, that when you have, let's say, 3 or 4 Republicans running against each other in one particular district, the strategy would be for people who may want just one of those people to win to bring in a candidate that isn't really interested in running, but go ahead and sign up and pay the money, whatever, $6,000, and then not really run a campaign, but close the primary. And so therefore, only Republicans could vote in that scenario in the primary for these 4 Republican candidates. And the one with the most money and the most postcards and the most, in these days, MAGA, conservative, Trump-like message will win. And what does that do? Why do I not like that? Because it shuts out the majority of the voters in Manatee County. It only allows the very small percentage of people to vote. But those are the laws in the state of Florida.
Well, so the way I reviewed it when I was doing my homework for today's episode is that Florida is only one of 9 states that has closed primaries. So also our viewers might want to know that every state can make whatever, they can make a different call. So we're one of 9, and this process of where closed primaries come into play. And so it's interesting when I think about that as to why was that done? Why is that favorable? Why isn't it? And I think you both touched on it, which is when you have a more favorable party that has a higher percentage of registered voters, you want to make sure your one favorite candidate in that party is the one that everybody's voting on in the general election. You don't want it to be the best person wins based on the overall vote. You want it to be the one that you want to move forward. So okay, well, so today we did a couple things. Everybody talked about how you qualify, and especially in the world of petitions, why it's okay to sign a petition, even if you're not bringing someone forward as a voting for them for like the election, you're helping them to get on the ballot. And then also about closed primaries and some of the pitfalls, as Retchie mentioned, about having a closed primary. So because it's election season and everything continues to change, and we have new candidates come in this week, we'll be talking about this more in the next few episodes of the Big Picture Manatee, and bringing you guys important things that are happening. And we want to thank you for tuning in today to talk about these are important as a citizen, as someone who will be choosing the people that run your community. Please educate yourself. An easy way to do that is to go look at the Supervisor of Elections for Manatee County's website. So thank you for watching, and we purposefully try to keep our episodes under 30 minutes and even a little shorter, so you guys can enjoy it during a walk, while you're driving, while you're having a free moment at home, or even like my colleagues do when you're working out.
Yeah, please follow us on Facebook, YouTube, and please educate yourselves and tell all your friends and neighbors to do the same and vote knowing who you're voting for.
Yeah, also follow us, and you can go and check out our website at thebigpicturemanatee.com. Thank you all.
Thanks.
Bye.
See ya.